Welcome everybody to the Cloud Cafe and the ForeFront show, where we kind of interview founders and the neighborhoods their business resides in. Today we have a special guest that actually neighborhoods are kind of all over the world in some kind of, their physical location is in Milwaukee, but ForeFront is part of the Cloud Cafe. And my name is Jeremy Fojut. I am the co-founder of NEWaukee. We host a lot of conversations during the week in many different programs. So if you're interested in seeing more programs, please sign up for our newsletter at NEWaukee.com. All of the programming is brought to you by Ginger Lazovik at Shorewest Realtors. She is kind of our resident expert, and she'll be talking a little bit about the neighborhood today on this program around as we dive into the neighborhood after we ask Josh some questions about his story and his journey and kind of the state of affairs. I'd like to welcome my co-host here, Alexa. Welcome. Alexa is the co-founder of Meat on the Street, and she's going to be guiding us through this conversation. Want to say hi to everybody, Alexa?
Hi, guys.
So, well, welcome, Josh. Why don't you start off by giving an introduction and giving some of your background, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks to both of you for having me on. So my company is called Agricycle. We're based out of Ward 4 in the 3rd Ward. What we do is we work all over the world in East and West Africa, Central America, and the Caribbean. We manufacture machines in Wisconsin that work without electricity, exporting those to communities all over the world, transforming a natural abundance of fruits that go to waste into products that we can sell back in the United States. So we're training women cooperatives and farmers on how to take fruits that they have too many of and can't get to market quickly enough by dehydrating them, packaging them in different brands. So the Jolly Fruit Co. is the main one that we have right now, but then we also make a few others and bring those back to the US and sell them.
And where did you kind of come up with this? You know, what's the initial concept? Like, how'd you come up with this business idea, and kind of tell everybody about that story?
Yeah, definitely. Fell backwards into it. It was an attempt at creating a nonprofit that would help farmers in rural communities preserve fruits for food security. So it was business was not a part of it. The idea started when I was studying at university. Here in Milwaukee. I was studying engineering, and we were tasked with creating a passive solar dehydrator. The idea of that is that it preserves fruits without using electricity. So it's good in rural context. That dehydrator then would allow communities to take fruits that otherwise would go to waste and have them for when they don't have fruits growing during the season. Turned out after we built a few of them that the farmers weren't really interested in that. What they wanted the most was the ability to sell those fruits and get value from it, because they needed money to buy, to diversify basically nutrition sources, to have money to go to the city, to get a better education. So what it turned into is more of a tool of economic empowerment. And we found out, okay, it's not so much that they need an engineer to design a dehydrator. It's much more that we have to get this product to a market. So that's when we started to think like social entrepreneurs, and we started to meet food safety and quality standards. We built a supply chain back to the United States, and then we figured out we had to create a brand and sell something. So when we were going down that journey, it was the Commons that we kind of made this pivot during. So the Commons is a nonprofit skills accelerator found in Ward 4. So yeah.
So I did some research on you guys, and when you talk about like actually going to these farms and teaching these people how to basically start their own, like of the supply chain, their own part of it, and essentially their own business, the dehydrators, they build them themselves, correct?
Yeah, a lot of times. So our original approach was that we would provide a design for dehydrators that could be built out of local materials. Super easy to do. But the hardest part though was to basically inspect those dehydrators over time. It's hard to basically maintain the certifications that we have for food safety. So there's a lot of overhead that's needed to manage that. Instead, what we're pivoting toward is now manufacturing dehydrators in Wisconsin. So that's what my co-founder, Claire, the big innovation she had with the dehydrators is basically simplifying the design from being 3 main pieces, a tunnel that naturally heats up air and then forces it up, a chamber that captures that air and then like directs it upward again, and then trays that have the fruits. She managed to combine 2 of those pieces into the third one. So her system is the one that we actually manufacture and we export.
And tell us, you said it was kind of started as a nonprofit, then into a social entrepreneurship. Why the switch to a for-profit? Why not stay a nonprofit? What made you decide to go that route?
Yeah, the first thing that stopped us is I tried reading about how to start a nonprofit and I couldn't figure it out. So,
Yeah.
So the first thing that we created was an LLC. That was really just our way of moving forward. When we really made the decision, it was because we thought, so we're a Wisconsin benefit corporation.
Mm-hmm.
A little different. What we have from a normal company, what we have is a benefit purpose. It's in our articles of incorporation. It says that apart from just trying to make a profit, we actually are also here to accomplish our benefit purpose, which is for us empowering rural women farmers across the world and reducing natural food loss. We made that decision of being a for-profit because it allowed us to scale a lot faster. So the main thing that we were interested in was helping the farmers that we were working with, but also growing to help more. So being a nonprofit, that was hard. We were college kids. We didn't know what we were doing, but we knew that if it was a business that was sustainable on its own revenue and that could grow faster and that could take on investors, which we have, we can help a lot more people a lot quicker.
What a benefit corp, does that have any tax benefits, or is it more of a mission based? Like what is the benefit of going benefit?
Yeah, well, I think there's a ton of benefits to a benefit corp, but there's nothing tax related. So it's not that because we have a social purpose, we are hunted less by the government or something like that. We still owe the same amount of taxes. We file as a C Corp. The main thing behind being a benefit corporation in Wisconsin, so it's different for every state that has one of these designations, but in Wisconsin, being a benefit corporation, it's about incorporating it into your incorporating documents. And so that's the basis of why you're around. There's some argument over how much that really matters in the boardroom. But one thing is that it directs where the officers and directors can take the company. So it's okay that we pay an ethical wage to farmers, even if we could negotiate a much lower wage, something like that.
So you guys are very female focused when it comes to farmers in all these different countries. Is there a reason that you are female focused? Is that more of a cultural reason? Is it more of an economical reason?
Yeah, it's a lot of, there's a lot of reasons for it. The first one, I mean, just right off the bat, in Kenya, I believe that in the low 80%, 83, 84% of the agricultural labor force, in Uganda, 83, 84% of the agricultural labor force is women. Meanwhile, men are the ones who own the vast majority of all property and farms. So despite the fact that women are the ones working on the farms, men are the ones who get paid for the value addition that happens from that labor. Kenya has the high 60% after that. That's the first thing, is that there's a big disparity in ownership versus ownership and realizing profits versus who's actually out on the farm doing the work of being on a farm. The second thing though is that so Agricycles Vision, the big reason for why we're doing this is to eradicate extreme poverty. So within the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, that's number 1, no poverty. And of course, they have some realistic, objectives to hit with by 2025 or 2030. But for the reason why we focus on women while we're trying to accomplish no poverty is because there's more impact to be made by helping women set up independent bank accounts and create independent businesses. We pay them directly, and we ensure that our cooperatives have at least 50% women represented. The reason why is because we're not the ones that have done the studies, but there's study after study that shows that within rural households, $1 paid to a woman is much more likely to be spent on goods that provide for the nutrition and welfare of the family, from healthcare to food, than $1 paid to the man. Part of that is because money goes directly to men typically in a lot of the cultures and communities that we work with. And so the man is used to making financial decisions on his own. The woman, meanwhile, it's normally more collaborative, just in the pure fact that a lot of times the man's kind of surprised that suddenly she has buying power. So that kind of equalizes a lot of discussions and decisions within some of the regions that we're working. So that's why we focus on.
Yeah, when I was reading your website, I'm just trying to get a little background. I have recently read Melinda Gates's Moment of Lift book, right, where it talks about poverty and it talks about investing into the female population to help bring these countries out of extreme poverty. And the two correlated for me and reminded me of that. So it's awesome to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Also, Claire, our co-founder, I think she's reading that book right now. So.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's heartbreaking, and it's also like such an eye opener. So yeah, it's incredible. So you guys are directly paying these female farmers or female employees or owners or whatever that are working on the farm. It goes directly into their pocket to make decisions with.
Yeah. So the principle is called direct trade. So direct trade. So I know that a lot of people are familiar with fair trade at this point. Fair trade coffee, fair trade chocolate. But that's not. There's a lot that goes past just paying a fair wage to farmers, and then also fair trade. A true fair trade program is where you also pay into a collective premium. So part of the money is held at a cooperative level.
Okay.
Used to pull up and help out people individually. Fair trade can still be sold to local coyotes that then sell it to brokers who sell it to exporters, sell it to wholesalers, to distributors, to retailers, to a consumer. Fair trade doesn't mean that it's not still going through an exploitative supply chain that everyone's taking their cut. Direct trade, the basis of it is that you cut out every single person in the middle, and that the farmer gets paid for the goods that they've produced when they deliver it, or 3-5 days after, right? Like, basic terms. A lot of farmers can wait up to 90 or 120 days to get paid for the goods that they're producing. So our model, we have a 0 to 2 day payment turnaround. So we can either, if it's small enough, we can do it through mobile money. When one of our community development officers shows up, or if it's a larger payment, it takes 2 days. But so that's a big part of what we have. We don't keep it on the farmer, to be responsible for if we manage to sell it or not.
Okay.
The ones who are buying it.
And you guys just had a few different. I think when I was at your pitch, because you pitched in front of me one time, and I gave some feedback, I believe. It was the water accelerator where we met.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Global Water Center. You had a different name. Why the name change? What was the different branding for?
Yeah, so we went under the name Blue Mangoes for a really long time. Blue Mangoes was Blue Mangoes because the first place where we did a dehydrator was in the Blue Mountains of Jamaica, and we were working with farmers there. So that's that's about as much thought that went into, and that, we dry mangoes. So Blue Mangoes was the name that we went forward with. Agricycle came from a couple of things. At first, we thought Blue Mangoes had a trademark issue. So, that's what got us thinking outside of the name Blue Mangoes. We found out about a month later that it didn't. But we still had been shocked into a point where we started looking at, like, is Blue Mangoes really the right name for us? We started tossing around other things, and we came across Agricycle. Agricycle, agricultural upcycling is, the name of the game. We're transforming waste into opportunity. But the reason for why we looked at something that was bigger than Blue Mangoes, which was a fun, people heard it and asked, like, what's Blue Mangoes every single time. The reason why we decided to go with Agricycle is because it gets at a much bigger, not only vision, but also like scope of work. So it's not just about drying fruits. We take the byproducts of the fruits that farmers dry, and then we teach them how to turn some of it into charcoal, some of it into baking flours. We're working on a wine. So we're trying to use every single part of the fruit. So, women who work in our cooperatives, they're making 7 times the daily wage in the country, sometimes much more than that, just off of the dried fruit. So then we try to say, okay, like, since you've dried coconuts, the shell of the coconut, you're not going to do anything with. So instead, we came up with the charcoal that you can make out of coconut shells, palm kernel shells, and cassava starch. Just 3 ingredients. It burns incredibly hot. And so we've built a consumer brand around that. So we're actually launching that this summer, just a month from now. So we're trying to figure out what other brands and products can we create along the same value chain that help out those same farmers. So that's why the name changed, because we wanted to show that, it's not just the dried fruit. It's really a portfolio of ethically sourced and cycled brands.
That's amazing and incredible. So what do you have products on the market currently that people can buy?
Yeah, definitely. So anybody who's watching, if you want to get a snack while you're at home, jollyfruit.co is where we have the dried fruit. They're fully traceable from tree to shelf. Each QR code that's on the bag is placed on there individually. You can scan it, and I'll tell you the story of the women who dried it, farmers who grew it, and where in the world it came from.
Like from the farm that fruit came from, correct?
Yep. So fully traceable. We're getting to the point where it's also going to be able to tell what tree it came from, and then you'll be able to have dates that pop up for when it was picked, dried, packed, shipped. So right now, it just tells you the story of what cooperative it came from. And then we're also coming out with 2 other brands this summer. So Tropical Ignition is our Better for Everyone charcoal, and then we have some flour for anyone who wants to be baking at home, made out of mango, made out of breadfruit, and so that's What the Fruit. Yeah.
Gosh, you kind of went through some changes, and that I'm sure you had some ups and downs. Can you talk about some of the challenges you face as an entrepreneur starting, and kind of how you overcame that maybe, and what you did to overcome those things? Because all entrepreneurs have changes and pivots and starts and stops.
Yeah, definitely. I've got 2. So I think the first one would be that 2018 we had, we'd started to go down this path of we're a social enterprise. We had the idea of our model. We're gonna use the technologies that we design to create a product that are sold in the US. We had that outlined to our business model. We thought that the appropriate thing to do would be to partner with nonprofits that work in rural communities outside of the US. So when we don't have any cultural competency in the place that we're working, when we don't have any connections inside the country, best thing to do is to work with somebody who does, and who would also like to see this model come to the farmers that they work with. It turned out to be totally wrong. Nonprofits would pick up stakes and leave the moment that a grant kind of brought them in a different direction. Coordination was tough. We ended up talking to farmers directly anyway. So what we learned the hard way, we spent about a year thinking that we needed support to work with farmers, is that we just needed an introduction, like somebody literally just to drop us off at the farm and say, this is Josh, this is Claire. Like, they'd like to talk to you guys about what you're doing with your leftover fruits. And we would, which was, I think, in some parts, you know, like I had this perception that I should have a perception about the cooperatives that we're working with, and that we should be really sensitive around the differences of us being American, and the people I'm talking to, you know, most of them need to wait for the translator to speak. Found out that the better approach was just to treat everyone like purely equally, and to ask for a meeting, to show up, to pitch your idea, and to answer the questions. And I swear that's like what we do every time now. And well, we don't have the pleasure of being able to do that all the time anymore. Now we have a massive field staff that we've hired. So we've hired 21 different employees outside of the US in the countries that we work in, who are now able to do that day in and day out. And it also kind of avoids that like cultural barrier. But it took a long time for us to, like, bashing our head against the wall, working with nonprofits to figure out that our assumptions, first of all, our assumptions about not having assumptions were wrong to begin with, and that we needed to pivot. So yeah, that's the first. I think on a personal level, I feel like I've done a good job as a founder. If a founder of the company is the one who creates an idea, perseveres through like some struggles, pitches to people, asks for money occasionally, and kind of like builds a team, I did a good job of that. You know, despite being a college student, being young, etc. I felt like that just required like passion and some confidence. But the transition that I've been going through with the rest of my team, of having to be more of a true CEO than a founder, like it's not enough for me to just talk about the things that would be great if we could do. My job is to make sure it happens, and to help work with team members to get through obstacles and stuff. I think that's been incredibly hard, because it's where I sometimes feel like more experience would have helped. And so, yeah, not that that's something that I've fully overcome, but I think I've gotten to the point where I understand that this is like my learning curve now, actually managing and operating business rather than talking about a cool idea.
And you know, speaking of raising money, you just raised $1.5 million round, right? That just came through. I believe I just read that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it was.
Okay. And was that all private? Was it any local Wisconsin ties, or was that outside of Wisconsin? Okay.
Yeah. So we had Masa Impact Partners, which is based in Madison. They do impact investing, as well as Bright Star Wisconsin. I guess technically based out of Madison, as I found out, but Fred is in Milwaukee, so that's who I knew. And then Wisconsin Investment Partners, plus a few extra angels. Yeah. So it was mostly Wisconsin capital.
Oh, awesome.
So being younger means you are less experienced, doesn't mean you aren't less qualified for the job, because you've been killing it since I've known you, because I met you during Blue Mangoes at the Commons. So it's been so interesting to see how this has evolved. Who do you look for to learn how to be a CEO at such a young age? Do you have mentors? Do you follow certain, whatever, famous celeb-like CEOs? Are there books you're reading? Are there blogs? Like, where do you go to help you navigate this role?
Yeah. So I feel like I've had like a parallel degree in accelerators across Wisconsin. So it started with the Commons. Then we jumped to the National Science Foundation Innovation Corps, which is like 4 weeks of figuring out what customer discovery is and how to figure out if you're selling to the right person. But the Commons helped us structure an idea. G Beta is what really made us into a business. And there are many others after. I think the answer to your question is mostly advisors, people who I've met during the accelerators who are either peers with me as we went through the cohort, or were some of the people who worked at those companies. So Danny from Generator is somebody that I talk to often to work through ideas and things that come up. So it's been good, like over the time that we've walked through like the Wisconsin ecosystem for entrepreneurs. We've picked up advisors left and right. I think I also learned about how to find like the right advisors too, and to be able to understand when somebody's like happy to just talk about what their thoughts are compared to like they're ready to work through like the issues that you have in front of you. Yeah, I think that's what's helped the most, and that's who I've learned from. A lot of it also is just day to day within the business. Like, I think I've made my role adaptive. So it's, I haven't had to fit into a box necessarily. It's more like whatever the issue of the day is, I get to respond in some way. Sometimes I try to like, just focus on like the goal that we're trying to hit outside of that. But yeah.
We have a couple of questions in the Q&A, but I'll wait for those. I want to kind of dive in. And if you do have any questions, you can use the Q&A function. We'll get to those at the end of this. So we have a couple in there right now that we'll answer when we get to them. But we do on this show want to dive in not just to your story, which we can kind of ping pong back and out of, but also the neighborhood you're in. You're specifically in, and I'll just let you know, I was in a Twitter battle the other day about where technically Ward 4 is. Just so you know, Ward 4 is technically in the Menominee Valley, but then it was annexed to the 3rd Ward. But if you ask people in the building, they always say they're in Walker's Point. So your company is in the Ward 4 or the old Pritzloff complex. Can you just talk a little bit about that? And then I'm going to also bring in our resident expert of neighborhoods, Ginger, and she's going to talk a little bit about the neighborhood as well. So for people that aren't familiar with it, because there are people I see on the line here from Pittsburgh and from across Wisconsin, I just want to give people a context of where your business is.
Yeah, definitely. So well, you mentioned where Ward 4 is. I can say that Ward 4 has been super special to us. The 2 main accelerators that we went through are housed within Ward 4. And that's also where we have our office right now. So
yeah. Can you tell people what it is?
Yeah. So Ward 4, it's one of the, I would say it's one of the gathering points of the entrepreneurial community in Milwaukee and in Wisconsin, I guess. It's part co-working space, it's part startup offices, it's Accelerators have their offices there. It's a beautiful building that's along one of the rivers. So that's where we got started 4 years ago. Was, we started showing up there for the Commons every Tuesday night, and then that became showing up during the summer to G Beta, and then eventually we stuck around long enough that the Commons offered us some of their office space, and now we're actually taking over the lease.
And where do you personally live? Are you in the area?
Walker's Point. Yep. So 15-minute walk.
Well, I'm going to bring in Ginger here, and I just want to talk a little bit about, for people that don't know Walker's Point or aren't familiar with it. Ginger, can you give us an overview of the Walker's Point and Walker Square neighborhood?
Absolutely. Hi. Great interview today. I'm enjoying hearing about your business, Josh, so thank you. The Walker's Point, Walker Square neighborhood is really quite diverse. It's actually one of the oldest neighborhoods in Milwaukee. And so there's a great cross-section of culture, arts, community, and collaboration. Oftentimes what people think of as sort of the center of that area is Walker Square Park, which was interestingly one of the first 3 public parks in Milwaukee. And today that houses a vibrant farmer's market, has a wading pool, there's green space, and there's playground, a lot of spaces for people to get together. And the whole neighborhood itself is vibrant with restaurants, eateries, nonprofits, and development going on.
What about like Josh, do you live in apartment, or it sounds like you're going to be there a while? Are you moving? So are you living in the Walker Square area, or where specifically are you?
Mercantile Lofts.
Okay.
So just moved in about a month ago, right when everyone was supposed to be hunkering down. Got my first apartment.
Perfect time to move. Perfect time to move. And Ginger, what's kind of would you say the feel of the neighborhood is, like housing style and architecture style? Like what are the walk scores, transit scores?
Sure. The feel of the neighborhood and the style, well, the style in terms of housing is really diverse as well. So there's single family homes, there's rentals, there's duplexes, there's multifamilies, there's some commercial space, obviously. And then in terms of the architecture, there's really, because the houses are so old, there's a lot of diversity there too. Some of the houses date back to the late 1880s. They're still standing, they're gorgeous. So we see bungalow style homes. There are cottages. There are Victorians and some sort of historically marked houses in the neighborhood. And that really creates for an interesting mix. In terms of the walkability, I always use walkscore.com, which ranks it at 85, which is pretty high. They actually marked it as the 7th most walkable neighborhood in Milwaukee. And I think part of that is because of the number of restaurants, eateries, breweries, coffee shops. Within, a 5-minute walk, you could easily be to 8 or 10 different places, and a variety of styles too, sort of higher end restaurants, sort of places just to run in and run out, Purple Door ice cream, Great Lakes Distillery. You're probably familiar with a lot of them.
Yeah. What about I guess the last thing here is what about the housing market today? I mean, we're talking about COVID. What if people want to move to Walker's Point, because actually NEWaukee is looking to move to Walker's Point. So what would you recommend people ever want to move there?
Yeah, well, the housing market is always changing. So I did an active poll today of what's available for properties in the neighborhood. And there are actually 7 things on the market in Walker's Point. And there's really a range. There's some single family homes available. There's some duplexes, and there's multifamily and even a mixed use property, Jeremy, that has some commercial space.
It's not the one I'm looking at.
Could be the one you're looking at. So the lowest price property, just to give you an idea of the price range, is $11,500. And then that multifamily mixed use, which has 4 residential and 2 commercial storefronts in it, is $229,000. And if you look at kind of what's the median, what's the middle of the road in Walker's Point, the 2019 data ended up shaking out. The median priced house was like $95,000. And it was about 1,100 to 1,200 square feet. So that's a lot of where the single family homes are. They're between 1,000 and 1,500 square feet. You're going to find some that are a little bit larger, some that are a little bit smaller, but that's where a lot of those single family homes are going to be sized and priced.
And the COVID obviously is impacting some of the businesses, Josh. How is it impacting Agricycle?
Yeah, so totally disrupted our retail launch. So that's for sure. So we were planning on being able to get the Jelly Fruit Co. into a lot of different grocery stores and some of the natural food stores in the area. We just put a complete pause to that for a little bit, readjusting. I should also, put some context around it. We were in our entire team. Every single employee that we have was in Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya, when the president made the announcement that all travel to and from Europe is banned. At that time, he had not specified that Americans could come back. At that time, he had not specified that cargo could continue. So those were all corrections that came out within the hours after that. But we were absolutely freaking out. We had to buy emergency tickets through Dubai to make it back to the US. While we were on the flight, we heard that Kenya got its first case from an American who came there. And they started shutting down flights. So we knew that even if travel wasn't banned, flights were going to start getting canceled. There were 2 flights that were heading from Nairobi to New York, and we picked one of the flights. While we were at the airport, the other flight got canceled. So just pure luck. So we were pretty shocked into it, I'd say, middle of March. So we made pivots where the Jolly Fruit Co. was already online, but for this charcoal, the idea was getting in front of Ace Hardware's and doing grill outs and getting people to see how much better the charcoal is. Like you're burning fruit shells instead of burning trees. It's a way better prospect, and also just works better. We've lost a lot of those opportunities. We're not trying to stand in front of people and talk at them for 10 minutes about how cool our charcoal is when you should be staying inside or just going to do what you need to do. So instead, we've had to make some pivots to where our products are being sold online. So that's meant that we've had to spin up websites quickly, get ready to launch on Amazon. So for Tropical Ignition and What the Fruit, those things are right around the corner, but it's taken us a month and a half, which is a long time, especially like we're supposed to be able to pivot quickly as a startup, and like that's as quickly as we could move. I can only imagine for other businesses who their business is seeing customers inside of their store.
Awesome. Ginger, I just want to ask, do you have any final thoughts on the Walker's Point neighborhood? Anything we definitely should know about, what you think are the best parts of it and make it one of the cooler areas to live in the city?
Sure. Well, I could go on for a really long time. So just to keep it succinct, I happen to love that neighborhood. I think part of what makes it unique is it's an affordable neighborhood in Milwaukee. It has really strong neighborhood associations, which are always a great sign. And I think it offers something for everyone. If you're looking for a rental, it's there. Single family home, it's there. You might be thinking about investing. There's investment opportunities. And I think a great way to experience it beyond just going to a restaurant or something that's an establishment there might be the Fifth Street Festival that's held every year in September. It's an outdoor festival that brings together all the best of Walker's Point, including the people, the diversity, the music, the culture, the food, and you could kind of get a taste of it all.
Awesome. Thanks for that. All right, Josh. Well, how long have you guys been in business now? 3 years, 4 years?
Yeah, been a thing for 4.5 years, but practically in business for 1.5 years.
Okay. What is one thing you would tell the younger version of yourself? Like sitting where you are today, what is like a piece of advice?
You're wrong, pivot faster. So, but the idea that like, I've been taught from the very beginning that, your assumptions are wrong. Like, just be ready to pivot, fail fast, fail often. I didn't really actually ingrain that as much as I should have when I was starting out. So, but that's now a big part of just how we operate.
Mm-hmm.
You said you had some ideas that you say to your staff, and obviously now you have to execute them. When you tell your staff, what's some of the vision you have? What's some of the vision you kind of share with them and tell them that this is where we're going? Like if you were moving in the future? Yeah,
so right now we have 2 food products and then charcoal. You can take, when you slice a mango, in order to dry the mango, you get a pit that's left over, you get some juice that's left over, and you get the peel. So the juice can be, sold locally, add some ice and it's a slushy. And some of the women do that. The pit, we've learned how to turn into a flour. The peel, there's a chemical in the peel called urushiol oil. And it's a natural insecticide that can actually be fairly easily distilled. You add water to it and it keeps bugs away. The idea that Agricycle is just limited to food and charcoal is silly. And there's no limit to the amount of products that we can create, but really the point is just the different value streams and ways that we can turn farmers' waste into opportunity for them. So, I mean, that's what I'm most excited about. It's about growing the brands we have and of course managing what's right in front of us before we get too far-sighted, but I'm excited for, growing this portfolio.
Do you have any testimonials from the female farmers where you met them, you pitched them this idea, they decided to take it on, and then a year or however many years later, how has this impacted their lives, their families?
So, that's a great question.
Yeah, definitely. So yes, we're starting to gather more of that content. On our team, one of the full-time U.S. employees who's in Milwaukee, her name is Ashley. She's our director of impact. Her job is to measure the impacts that we're having on the women, on the farmers, our environmental impact with food waste, et cetera. Part of that is in collecting these stories. So we're starting to collect these impact stories from cooperative members, and our local teams are leading a lot of that on the ground. On the Jolly Fruit Deco, you can find some of that information. You can go check out the cooperatives and everything. But I'd say one of the big moments that really hit home is when we were at one of the communities in Broadway, Pidibe, northern Uganda, and this was on our main location. So this was just 2 months ago when our whole team was there. And the women from the cooperative spent 2 hours preparing a dance for us and gathering fruits from the market. We were donated 3 chickens, fruits, a small carving that one of them made, and it was all just a sign of appreciation of what we had done. So the statistics and all that stuff is on the website, but I think what really hit home is just like these women took like time out of their day, and to give away 3 chickens is like not a joke. It's a big thing. So really appreciated that, and that's one of the first moments where it really hit home.
Just curious, when you're working around the globe, I used to be in international sales, and every time I told people I was from Milwaukee, they'd be like, "What? Where?" And then you'd go Chicago, and they go, "Oh, okay, I get it." Do you find that when you're, obviously your business is based here? 2 questions then. Like, do you find that happens a lot? And then secondly, do you feel like Milwaukee is a great place to start a company? As we talked about, sometimes this is a place where startups, the startup numbers aren't always the best. What's your thought on that?
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing, yeah, I try saying Milwaukee, and then people are like, "What?" I'm like, "Wisconsin." They're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Chicago." And they're like, "Oh, Chicago." Okay. So, not Illinois, but so yes to that. But to the deeper question about is Milwaukee or is Wisconsin a good place to start? I think 2 things. Selfishly, because of those bad startup numbers, it means that we've gotten a little more attention and been able to get in front of people easier, and more people have worked with us at an earlier stage. So selfishly, I would say to anyone who's looking to start a business in Milwaukee, it's a good time to, because you look at those numbers and you're like, oh, cool, there's not as many people trying to ask for money. There's not as many people trying to start this, which of course, as a community, we want more people to do so. But that's just one thing to encourage people who are thinking about it. On the flip side though, when I mentioned that I had a parallel degree in accelerators, and that's how I learned how to start our startup, Agricycle would not be a company without the network that we went through. And I know that just a couple years before we started going through this, that infrastructure didn't exist, and that there was a lot of grief about that, and that we are taking advantage of every single program that's come out to teach us how to run our startup better. But I think that's kind of a testament to how well what's here now has worked. From G-Beta to MadWorks. Well, we did the MWork accelerator about our dehydrators. Food and Beverage Wisconsin has helped integrate us as a food business, which was like somehow the last thing that we were thinking of doing. So yeah, I think in a lot of ways, we're a product of the Wisconsin ecosystem.
For people that don't know about accelerators or what they are, can you give a little bit, because you have to apply to the accelerator, you have to be chosen to the accelerator, you have to go through, and there's like a final presentation. Can you talk about that process a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So every accelerator is a little different. You can also argue which are accelerators, which are incubators. The idea though is that there's some organization that for some reason wants to help you get off the ground and be a better business. Some of them are focused on different industries, like Midwest Energy and Research Consortium, MWork, some of them, and Food and Beverage Wisconsin. Others are agnostic, so G-Beta, the Commons, MadWorks. for G-Beta, for example, you have to reach out, have a coffee chat, apply. If you have like your stuff put together, you'll move on to a pitch to them, and then they'll choose who gets in and who doesn't. They choose small cohorts for each city. They do it, I think, 3 times a year. So we did not get in the first time that we applied. And so that was, I was upset. Looking back, we totally did not deserve to get in. So learned a lot from that process though, and they worked with me after that until I applied the second time and we got in, and that really jump started a lot of our actual like thinking like a business. So yeah, an accelerator or an incubator is great for if you are struggling to figure out how to pivot your business, to you have a brand new idea that's concept stage, but you've made some progress on it. So the idea is not that they're the first person you turn to, you know, go look up what a business model canvas is and write some stuff on there and go show it to somebody and see if it makes any sense. But after that, once you have a little bit of, you know, effort behind you, accelerators and incubators are very helpful.
What's funny is I texted Joe Kurgis today, and I was like, I had this tech idea. He's like, yeah, you're not the only one that texts me. Can you just send me a formal meeting request so we can have a conversation, not through text? Anyways, Josh, anything else you want to share about maybe the kind of a final question here about anybody else looking to start a company, especially right now? I mean, people might think it's a really bad time to start something, but you know, some of the best companies come out of a recession. You know, some of them are best. Some of the innovation comes out of things that are, you know, when you're kind of pushed against the wall. Not saying this is the best time to go out and spend money and spend, you know, your savings, but what advice would you give people that are just, you know, have an idea and haven't went anywhere with it yet?
Yeah. So the idea for mine started the second week of my freshman year of college. Yeah. So it's not like it takes a lot to get started. The jump though to thinking of it as like no longer this is just a side thing that I like doing, and that's cool and that people pat me on the back for doing, to thinking of it like this is something that I want to see actually fulfill its potential. I think that's the jump that a lot of people have to make. The Milwaukee startup community, for whatever stats are out there, I've always found is very open to talking, from accelerators just having open networking hours and conversations to if anyone wants to talk, hit me up. And, you know, I know a little bit now, but I could introduce you to people. So I think the small walkie kind of feeling, like, I think that helps in that there's people in the city that you can talk to about it, that you can bounce ideas off of, and there's never a wrong time to start. Definitely in an economic recession, whatever we end up hitting with the stats, if this continues for 3 months, et cetera, good businesses solve problems, and there's a lot of problems right now. So you can come up with some good business solutions.
I think that's the quote of the whole segment there. Good ideas solve problems. Okay. Well, Josh, I really appreciate your time and being on the show, and best of luck to you moving forward. And again, I do want to thank Alexa for being an amazing co-host of this program. And also want to thank Ginger Lazovik of Shorewest Realtors for your sponsorship of all the Cloud Cafe programs that we do. It's much appreciated. These things are all free, and they can't happen if there's no support. So really appreciate your time as well, Ginger. And thank you everybody for joining the session. And we will talk soon.
Thanks guys. Thanks Josh.
Thank you.